Thank you.
All
Okay,
right.
great.
Welcome everyone. I am Adrian Miller, the Executive Director of the Colorado Council of Churches, and thank you for joining us for this Lunch and Learn. Our motto here at the Colorado Council of Churches is walking together in faith, working together for justice. So if you've been connected to us, we usually reach out to you to talk about ecumenical issues, how we as Christians can get to know each other beyond our denominational kind of silos, and then also justice issues, so advocacy issues. We also understand that you as people of faith out there operating in this world, you face challenges. And one of them is often how can you utilize your space that's either not being used or underutilized. And so we are very grateful to the Reverend Deborah Meyer, who is an independent consultant at Comma LLC and accelerating issues of race and gender equity, who connected us to this space. So I am now going to turn it over to them. Let me just remind you all that this is being recorded. So if you know people who were not able to make it today, we will make that recording available. And we're even open to doing more of these if there's growing interest. So just keep that in mind, and we'll have a short presentation and then it will all be about discussion. So again, thank you for joining us. So we've got Ian Storer and Reverend Henry Kim here to take us from here. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks. So we'll start with asking Reverend Henry just to say a short prayer, and then we'll do introductions, if that's all right.
Well, let us pray. Oh, gracious God, we are grateful for calling us to your ministry and entrusting us with your people and the ministries, tasks that we are called to serve you. I ask you to be with us today and lead us, grace us with your Holy Spirit, that all the learnings and sharings would be a benefit to our ministry and to furthering your kingdom. So be with us today and be with all of us and all the churches that we serve, all the families, our families as well. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. So why don't we begin with some introductions, and those of us from this side of the screen, this space side, will go first, just briefly, and then because there's a handful of you in Colorado, we'd love to just have you each introduce yourselves as well, and then I will share some information about this space and how we're hoping to partner with you, and we're partnering with the Colorado Council of Churches, and then we'll open up for discussion. So I'm Ian Storer. I'm the co-founder and CEO of This Space, based in Oakland, where we're sitting right now, and been here for about 9 years. But I know a lot of people in the Colorado, Denver area, friends and family, former colleagues. So I'm excited to be here with you all and to be talking about how we might be able to support your congregations. With me here from our team, I'll just let Reverend Henry introduce himself, and then I'll mention the other team members, but Henry and I will be speaking with you today.
Well, introduce myself? Okay. Yeah, my name is Henry Kim. I am the United Methodist clergy in the California and Nevada annual conference for last 30 plus years, and so I am very excited to be speaking with you about my experience with this space and how they have actually helped the church that I serve. So looking forward to talking to you and answer any questions you may have.
Great. And then we have Andrew and Dawson from our team here as well. Andrew is our product manager based here in Oakland, sitting across the room from me. And then Dawson McLeod, who's actually in Toronto and is our co-founder and head of design. And there are others on the team who are not here, but we're all excited to be hearing from you and speaking with you. If we could just go around the room and one at a time, just briefly tell us your name, which church or organization you're with, and then we will then all know each other a little bit better, and we'll dive into the content. So if I could call on Sarah first.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sarah Evans. I'm with St. Ambrose Episcopal Church in Boulder. And one of our big things we're working on right now is how to use our space. So hoping this will be very helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you. Dawn. You're on mute, Dawn.
I'm Don Sutton. I'm the pastor of St. Paul's, which is a part of the Ecumenical Catholic Communion. We're nested. We don't have our own church. We're nested in a UCC church that uses their space very well. We recognize that the people coming and going during the week may be as important to us as the people who come on Sunday. And we've just lost a tenant, so that's why I wanted it taped or recorded, because the UCC pastor couldn't be here. Thank you.
We're glad you're here. Thank you. Joan, I see you're unmuted, so I'm going to call on you next.
Well, I'm Joan Jacobson. I'm a volunteer at Lutheran Church of the Master in Lakewood, and we have a lot of empty space, and have done some very brief looking into how to use it better, but we need a lot more information, a lot of trepidation out there about trying something new, and the most of all, the thing that always pops to the top are the tax ramifications.
Absolutely, and we'll touch on that a little bit today, and that's an ongoing open conversation. Connie.
Hi, I'm Connie Feast from Berkeley Community Church, a UCC church in Northwest Denver. And we have been renting out spaces in our building for some time, but we still have a few open spaces. And so I'm looking for ways to fill up those empty spots, especially after the pandemic when we lost everybody. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we've had some more people join, so we'll hopefully be able to finish this, the introductions before the end of the hour. Now, one person joined, but they used the link that I shared that had you named as Vigard, so I renamed you as Name, so I don't know your name, if you would unmute and tell us.
That's me. I'm Deb Eford. I'm with Montview Boulevard Presbyterian Church in Denver, and I'm the scheduling coordinator, and I'm always looking to improve on what I'm doing. So
wonderful. We're glad you're here, and I just put your correct name.
Okay, thank
there.
you.
Glad to put a face to the name and a name to the face.
Thanks.
Okay, we also have David just joined. Would you introduce yourself briefly, which your name, congregation, and any other comments you'd like to share up front?
Dave Claypool, Berkeley Community Church. And no questions at this point.
Wonderful. Thank you, David, for joining. And last but not least, Les, I see you're on as well.
Hi, I'm Les Berry from Shorter Community AME Church, and I'm just here to learn.
Wonderful. Welcome. We're glad you're here. And then I should also mention Dan Rydeen, who's our Chief Operating Officer and co-founder, also joined and is listening in. Dan, if you feel like going on video and saying hi, feel free. Oh, we can't hear you, but we'll move on. Okay. There you are. And Dan is currently in the Greater Toronto area, but also spends half of his year in Phoenix. So not too far from where you all are, at least half the year. So let me, I'm going to share a few slides, some content, and then we want to open this up for a discussion and your questions, and we'll go from there. So we will definitely end at the end, before the end of the hour, or at the end of the hour, depending on how long the questions go. Let me just bring up the slides. Dawson, I'm going to make you the host because when I'm sharing my slides, I won't be able to. So I don't know. That might end the recording. Let's see what happens. We may have to restart recording. We're all good. Okay, so then you can let anyone in who joins. It looks like the recording switched to you, so that's good. All right. Okay, so it's great to be here. We're with This Space. Our tagline is a place to connect in every neighborhood. Really part of our broader mission and vision, which is to connect people in community and to kind of bring humans together through faith properties, churches, synagogues, and other spaces that we have a lot of around the country. And Colorado is no different from California in that there are a lot of churches. But obviously, as we all know from our own experiences, the way that we gather in churches or in community has changed over our lifetimes. And in the last few years, that has only accelerated, and the challenges that we're facing have been exacerbated by the effects of the pandemic. So we connected with Adrian at the Colorado Council of Churches through Deborah, who I connected with through a community of people thinking about faith properties and how do we steward these spaces in a variety of ways. And we can talk about those different ways as part of this conversation, but this space is particularly focused on one piece of the challenge and the opportunity of having a lot of church properties in our communities that most people are no longer in on a regular basis. So a bit of background here. I grew up in Scotland and I'm the son of a Presbyterian Church of Scotland minister. I'm now an Episcopalian. That's a longer story, but I grew up in a lot of churches, and you can see here pictures of all the churches that I've attended or been a member of on a sort of regular basis in different phases of my life. Of course, I've been in many other churches apart from these, but these are the churches that I know. And what is now a common theme in all of these churches is that they're only used for part of the week. Perhaps on average, churches, in my experience, and churches across the country are utilized 20% of the time. And we may have a lot going on, but we have a lot of rooms that are not being used, even if there is somebody in the building doing something at any given time. And so that's kind of the origin story and the genesis of our journey to think about how can we open doors in new ways for community, especially post-pandemic. And we've brought together a team of people who are passionate about this mission and this need in our communities. Many of us that you see here on the slide are on this call. We have different backgrounds, different faith backgrounds, or no faith background, but we all believe that there is an important story that's being told and that we want to help shape as we think about the way that faith properties are being used today and in the future. And we also have advisors and investors in this space who also have a background in different faiths and different industries. We're thinking about how do we move forward, and you can see some of these people here. So what we do is we have created a marketplace and a web application that is probably familiar to many of you who've rented apartments or other spaces online. It makes it very easy for people to do short-term space sharing with the nonprofits and community members around them. And we help with marketing and the transactions and the processing of those agreements. We're not here to do congregational discernment or property development projects, or we're not focused currently on long-term leases, like with preschools or long-term office leases and that kind of thing. Those are things that I have experience of, but we're primarily focused on how can we get more people in for an hour at a time, or maybe an afternoon or a day at a time, or perhaps on a weekly or monthly basis for different kinds of events. And we have set up a simple app that allows churches to list their spaces for guests to come and find them to book, and for us to help churches then generate income through stewarding that space. We'll come back to some of the common questions that come up here. You can see control, insurance, nonprofit status and tax status, wear and tear maintenance, and other issues. But fundamentally, we're building a technology service that will help a bunch of churches band together. That's a quote from the rector at St. Augustine's Church, Episcopal Church in Oakland, one of our first hosts. And the vision is that by banding together, by bringing a lot of faith properties together, not just in one city like Denver or Boulder or Oakland, but across the country, we can do more together, and we can share resources, and we can make this easier for everyone. Because my belief from personal experience is that clergy, staff, and lay leaders, lay volunteers have other things that they want to be doing, whether it's pastoral care or ministry or preparing for worship or other things, rather than worrying about some of the ins and outs of how do we get more people into this space so we can continue to support and steward the space. We started in our backyard in the Bay Area. You may not be as familiar with the geography of the Bay, but you can see here Oakland where we started, and then we've been expanding. We now have a church in San Francisco, and we're starting to expand beyond this. And we have 7 denominations here so far, and are looking to expand and include more churches across denominations. And we may not all agree on everything on Sunday morning, but I think there's a lot of value in us coming together ecumenically and even across faith traditions to build this. And so we started in the Bay. We've got 16 hosts currently in the Bay Area with over 100 spaces that are being listed across all these denominations, and we're continuing to grow that. Our intent is for this to be a simple experience for everyone. So we work with the host to list the spaces that they have, make it easy for people to find them, to surface what's available, the kinds of uses that they can be used for, the kinds of activities, and then requests come in, and then you have control over those requests. You can approve or decline based on whatever criteria you have, and we can help you think through how you might do that if you're not doing a lot of it yet. And then, of course, insurance and other documentation is collected as part of that process, and then the payment goes to the church once that booking is completed. And this space charges 20% of the booking fee to manage that process and to provide the marketing and the technology and the process that everyone goes through. I'm going to address upfront some of the frequently asked questions that we get, and we can dive into all of these again, but I just want to get some of the common questions off the table, or at least address them briefly. There is no commitment to people signing up, so we have 16 churches that have signed up. They've all been with us, some for quite a while. None have canceled or stopped using us, but there is no commitment, and there is no sort of annual contract or anything like that, and there's no fee either associated with signing up, just to, on a subscription basis or anything else. Going to that third point, what we do is we charge a percentage of the bookings so that we can continue to provide the service, but we're not looking to make money unless the churches themselves are generating much needed rental income. Currently, we manage insurance by having guests get a certificate of insurance through there are various ways to do that, and they have to name the church as a co-insured party. I'm sure those of you who are already renting space do this as well. Our vision is once we get to a large enough scale, we're already in conversations with third-party insurance providers about this, we'll be able to build insurance into the platform. And so it will be much easier, and you'll have the lower barrier for guests to come and rent the space, and you'll have more assurance that the insurance and other pieces are in place. The fourth question here is who decides how much you charge, and that's really up to the host. And so if you want to give space away for free, or if you want to give big discounts to certain organizations, whether it's a food pantry or another program that you are committed to supporting and giving better rates to, that's entirely up to you. And we can provide some support and thinking through what the right rates would be. And one of the benefits of all of us banding together is we can see what everyone's charging more easily, and we can adjust rates as appropriate as needed. You remain in control of the space, who's using it, when they're using it. and that's a key tenet of our values and mission. We're not looking to take over a space and then have organizations that don't reflect the values of the congregation or would maybe be disruptive to the existing congregational or community life in the congregation. And then there are also key considerations around making sure that if you have a safe church policy or some kind of child protection policy or alcohol use policies, whether it's no alcohol or policies around making sure that alcohol is used in moderation and in a healthy manner, you can sort of set those policies, as well as health and safety and other policies that might need to be put in place. And so we're now reaching out to partners and people in other parts of the country. You can see here where our team is. We're spread out across North America, but we're really excited about going from where that green door is in California to Colorado, where we're really excited to engage, because we know that in the state there's a really strong nonprofit network. You have a very inclusive culture, and you're really strong in social justice. And these are some of the key things that we think will make this partnership particularly effective, because those are some of the key components of bringing churches and faith properties and the community together, is having a sense of vitality and engagement in those areas. And so we think that by expanding from California to Colorado first, we'll be building the next putting down the next stone in the foundations of this network that we're looking to build of churches all over the country that can become open, inclusive spaces for everyone. And in terms of how we want to engage from here, this is the first, and what we look forward to is a series of educational sessions where we'll have dialogue with you about how we go forward. We're looking to build a first cohort of churches in the state that we can work with and that we can bring together to figure out what this can look like, and how do we do this together. And then we will iterate, we'll scale, and we'll improve the process over the coming months and years as the network expands. And our hope is that by doing this, we can help to build more resilient communities with churches at the center and other faith communities. And then these will become stronger hubs for social justice and community engagement across the state and beyond. So I'll stop sharing there. That's really what we wanted to share. Just a few slides on who we are, where we come from. I would love to answer tactical questions or get into broader sort of strategic and missional questions around, why are we doing this, how are we doing it, and where do we go from here? And in particular, I'd also love to get into to hear from you, what you think of this and how we might partner as a at a state level with the Colorado Council of Churches to do something new together. So I'll stop there. I know Henry might want to share a few words and thoughts as well.
Thank you, Ian. Once again, my name is Henry Kim. I am a United Methodist clergy and a member of the California Nevada Annual Conference. I'm currently on sabbatical leave, so I'm no longer serving a church. But the church right behind my screen, behind me, is my previous church that I used to serve in First United Methodist Church in San Leandro, which is south of Oakland. And when I first went to this, start serving this church, I immediately noticed it's just a huge facility. It's a large sanctuary, fellowship hall, education halls, and education buildings, and so et cetera, and the chapel and all that. And hardly, most of the space was just collecting dust. And I was just asking myself, is this the best we can do? Is this the right thing to do? and also the church, the buildings are getting old, and so old buildings have old buildings issues, and they are very costly. So we were just like maintaining everything, and so hard to without knowing what would be the answers. And then this space approached me, and it really made sense to me, and so it wasn't that we weren't sharing our space, but only to a very limited group of people, AAs and NAs and whatnot, and then the very nominal, I mean, probably below even the the cost of usage, utility costs. But I began to talking to Ian about how we can make our church space as a resource for the mission of our church. And so we began really and numerous conversations, and they've been very, very helpful for us. I think that one of those greatest fear was the control issue. Okay, so are we just turning over our space to this space, and then we have no control over it? But it wasn't that. I mean, we can. We really felt like we were not obligated. We could actually choose the certain rooms and time of usage. So we were still taking control over this matter. So we felt pretty good about it. And so we've done a lot of, quite a bit of, the updating the rooms, because we've been neglecting many of these rooms. And so I just wanted to clean up and just be ready for the rentals. And one of the interesting situation was one of the local the movie director, maker, he wanted to use our church space. So I immediately pointed him to this space so that this space can vet them, and then make sure the rates are arranged, and make sure the insurance is covered. And so in that sense, we were very pain-free. We didn't have to worry anything about arranging this, and we were able to go through this space. And also we were able to. We've had a number of groups of people using, and then and when I looked at all these files, the contracts outdated, and a number of the the insurance certificates are missing. So we've been carrying these situations without even paying close attention to it, and even the rent was terribly outdated. So we began talking to this space whether they can actually manage even existing the users. And I know we're paying 20%, but just the fact that they're updating all the insurance, updating the fair rental agreement. Over a period of time, we felt like it's going to do a better job for us, and we didn't have to. Our staff and the volunteers did not have to spend on these issues and just accept all these deferred issues. So I think it is good, but only one thing that I wanted to be very, very clear: we didn't want to be a rental agent. And so we wanted to establish and make sure that our clear mission and vision of the ministries, and how these the rentals can really align with our mission and support the mission of the church. And so I think this is just something that we shouldn't feel guilty about. In fact, God has provided us our buildings as a resource for ministry. I think our resources need to be better utilized for the mission of the church.
Thank you, Henry. So we still have about half the time for discussion and questions. I'll address the questions in the chat first, and then we can open up. And again, I really would love to, after we address initial questions, get into a conversation about how we might support the churches that are here on this call and the other churches in whether it's Colorado Council of Churches or just in the state in general, to build a stronger, more resilient network that can serve the people around all of your facilities. So Les, you asked, how do we assist with pricing of rooms within churches? Yes, that's one of the main things we start talking with people about is what would be a reasonable rate, and how do you think about, you know, charging for different rooms, but also different types of use, or making sure that it's a simple and understandable system. I can't tell you the number of very complicated pricing matrices I've seen that churches have created, that even the person who created it doesn't really understand, and it doesn't really apply because there's always the exception to every rule. So we try to help churches come up with a very simple, intuitive model that makes it easy for everyone, especially the people outside who are trying to figure out, what can I afford this this rental, or what does it cost, and so forth. That said, we don't set the prices. We're not in charge of that, and at the end of the day, while we are charging a fee, we're here to help the church rent in the ways that make sense to the groups that make sense, not just, as Henry said, to maximize rental income in sort of absolute capitalist landlord kind of tenant situation. We're here to make sure that there's enough rental income to steward the facilities and to support the mission of the church. But this isn't commercial real estate at CBRE or JLL or something. Thanks for the thumbs up, Les. Connie, your question is, how do we find people? And so that's one of the key things that we're working on, and working with the congregations that we engage with here in the Bay. I think there's a couple of parts to your question. I'll try to break it down. We think that there are a lot of connections in your congregations, number one, who might be interested in renting space if it was easier or clearer how they could do that. And so we're working with congregations to enable them to spread the word. And often churches and congregants don't think about being sort of evangelists for space rentals. And they probably shouldn't think about it too much, but they can tell their friends at the coffee shop or the salon or the picking up the kids after school, oh, would you like to start that community yoga class, or would you like your nonprofit fundraiser to happen in our church hall? And so that's one step. We've started working on digital materials and also physical materials to make that easier, to reach more people in the community who, through word of mouth, just need to know that you're available and accessible. Obviously, there's online marketing, content marketing, and search engine optimizations, and some of those things that we're working on. And one of the key principles that caused me to start this space was, I don't think every church should be doing this on their own. Maybe I'll tell that story in a second, but we're going to be far more effective as a network of churches trying to reach the people in the community if we are pulling the search engine traffic and spend through a centralized entity like this space, rather than the 800 churches in the Colorado Council of Churches trying to individually figure out how to do that with limited time and budget, and people who don't necessarily, there are many people who know exactly how to do that in many congregations, but the vast majority of churches don't have search engine optimization experts kind of managing this for them. And then there's another component, which is we're building partnerships. We have now a partnership with the Colorado Council of Churches, but we're also building partnerships with nonprofits and other organizations to help them understand that the space is available, and that they bring them to the suitable space and make that easy for them. So, for example, in the Bay right now, we're working with a nonprofit that is a community of filmmakers, independent filmmakers who are doing small, low-budget films or writing screenplays or doing all sorts of things like that. And we're partnering with them to help those, well, they're maybe not all young, but those sort of small-scale artists know that there's a place where they could hold a screening, or maybe have a film location, or do a script reading or whatever it is they need to do for their independent projects. And so we're partnering with that Bay Area Film Mixer nonprofit. And that's another way that we can go out and build these partnerships over time, you know, whether it's with the Red Cross or, you know, social justice entities or others. That's kind of one of the key components of our strategy. To answer the question, and I can go on and on about this topic, but Connie, we generally understand that most churches are only going to want to rent to nonprofits, and so that's our focus. There are churches that are comfortable in certain counties, states, or just individual congregations where renting to a community organization that isn't a nonprofit or a small minority-owned business is something they want to do, and they are comfortable with the tax considerations of that, in part because they don't have a choice, and their congregation may not have the resources to survive unless they rent to organizations that are not 501c3s. That's a nuanced and long conversation that we have with a lot of churches. But by and large, our focus is on finding nonprofits that will want to rent space. There's one more question. David, the agreement does not require existing building users. We don't charge 20% for existing building users. What we did with Henry and his former church was we set up a program to onboard them and have them managed through our system, and then we would charge that. But that was because they wanted us, as he said, to help sort of reset agreements, work through pricing, and there was a lot of work that's still ongoing on that front. But we're not coming in trying to take 20% of the income you already have. In another congregation's case, they wanted us to help in a similar way because, again, they hadn't changed the agreements in 20 years, and so they were paying 2003 rental rates that just didn't cover the cost of energy or the cost of labor to run the facility for the time that those rooms were being used. And so we helped them with that, and so that's kind of how we've handled that. But it's not part of the agreement when you sign up. It's not a requirement. And we're figuring this out in terms of our model. We've tried to keep it simple, a standard fee, no recurring subscriptions or contracts. Over time, as we figure out how this will work, we might find that with churches with a lot of rental activity, it's better for them to pay a monthly set fee than for us to charge a percentage. But we're trying to keep this simple and understandable and low risk for everyone, or shared risk, in fact, because we're not making money unless not paying the bills unless you are. And by the way, feel free to unmute or raise your hand. We don't have to do the questions in chat.
Ian, can I jump in with two
Dan.
pieces of color? Yeah. Hey guys, and I'm sorry guys. Ian knows I'm a little distracted. Apologies. We had my son's wedding this weekend. I still have family in and out, so apologies for the late join. On the last question, Ian, I just wanted to add our hope, David, is that the platform and our solution adds value. If it doesn't add value, we don't have a business here. So if you had a current user and you saw, oh, the platform makes it easier and it eliminates clergy or office worker time from the church, that's good. If paying through the platform and Stripe adds value, that's good. If booking and calendaring through the platform adds value, that's good. And that's, David, we want the organization here to earn and see the value of this space, vice versa. So there has to be a value proposition there. Otherwise, no, we're not looking for 20%. That's not our goal. And secondly, I'll just add, guys, to the guest question, which was a great question, and how and where do you find them? What's been fun for us in the Bay Area is the exchange, cross-denomination. We now have a network of churches. They're talking to each other about best practices and pricing. And when a church is full and a men's choir wants to use it, they're pointing them to another church down the street that's another denomination. So it's real cool, but that's the network effect we would love to drive with Adrian and the Council of Churches in Colorado as well. Back to you, Ian.
Thanks. And then Joan, and this is a question I'm happy to start to address, but it's always nuanced and we'd have to understand some of the details. And we're also not offering tax advice or legal advice here, but I can. This comes up fairly often. Churches. There's different tax statuses that we have to consider. There's the federal tax status, and then there's the local property tax status, and that will vary based on county and state, etc. It sort of depends on how much rental income you have, how much pledging and tithing and donation income you have, relative, what the relative balance of rental income to other sources is. It also depends on, did you say it's is the preschool, so it would also depend if the preschool is a nonprofit or a for-profit. And then, sorry.
Yeah, it's a for-profit preschool, and they're strictly renting the space. There's no affiliation with our mission other than that they pay us money to use the space.
And so that can be a complicating factor, because sometimes churches will rent to a preschool and it's organized as a for-profit and they don't realize the impact it could have. I can't definitively answer the question for you, but the space being rented by the preschool could be potentially sort of separated from a property tax perspective. And that might be okay. There may be business income tax, unrelated business income tax issues, that you'd have to consider. In principle, Dan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, hey Joan, I'm ex PricewaterhouseCoopers, though not a CPA, so I'll add a little color. And Joan, I'd love if you want me to chat offline with your accountant or tax attorney, I'd be glad to do it. Ian is on track. It's what percentage of your total income or revenue that flows through the church? Is it significant or not? Number two is it aligned with your mission in some capacity? Arguably yes or no. And number three is not just nonprofit or for-profit. We have churches in the Bay Area renting to for-profit. They mark up the price by 20 or 25% and say, oh, I may have to pay income taxes on that. No big deal. I still want the rental income. But I'll be glad to, Joan, have that conversation offline if I can help.
And all I would add, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah. It is all complicated by the fact that our treasurer of 20 years just quit. So we have a brand new person who's very good, but she's the bookkeeper and she's new, and so that complicates the whole issue. But you've addressed the question. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is just, I think we have to think about, Connie, I see your hand is raised. Let me finish this one thought. I wouldn't say just because there is a preschool rental for-profit situation in this building or this wing over here that you shouldn't be considering. Then you might say we're only going to rent to nonprofits in the sanctuary, in the parish hall, and whatever other spaces you have. Mm-hmm. There might be ways to sort of manage and separate those two things out. So, but one other thought, which addresses my overall goal with this conversation, is how can we, as a group of churches, figure this out together? So the situation in Colorado is going to be different from the situation in California. The situation in individual counties and cities will be different. But if we can get together and have these conversations at a ecumenical level, if you will, we're going to be able to solve these problems and get the right CPA and legal advice, go and talk to the authorities at the local and state and federal levels, and make sure that we are not trying to figure this out on our own and not reliant on the treasurer who's been there for 20 years, who knows the answers to the questions, always being there. So that's part of our mission, is to develop some of the muscles. And we can only do that if we all kind of band together and figure it out. Connie, I see your hand was raised.
Well, I just wanted to tell you that we've had that situation in our church, and it's based on the square footage that they use. Yep. It's also based on whether you can share the space. So if it's exclusive space, then the tax will be different than if you can share the space. Whether you share it or not is kind of immaterial. But if you have, we've had the tax people talk to our treasurer and go through all kinds of things about it. And as long as you are sharing the space, the tax is less. And so, so even if you, like I said, even if you never use it, if it's available for you to use if you needed to, then that helps with the taxes.
And that's one of the reasons why we're focused on short-term occasional rentals rather than focusing on, a lot of churches like to do long-term leases where they're taking the old education wing and giving it to a preschool. There are reasons to do that, but I think we need to figure out how do we share the space more, because it's sometimes more advantageous.
We don't have to pay taxes on any nonprofit either. That's the other.
Right.
I don't know whether you understood that, but that's the other part that is important to know. If it's a nonprofit, you don't have to pay taxes, no matter how much they use.
Yeah, there's some considerations around whether a church, how much activity the church has in terms of federal tax status overall, but that's a slightly different topic. I don't know if there are any questions I missed. I think I got all the questions in the chat. Any other questions that people haven't put in chat or comments?
Hey, Ian, I'll just add, for some of the churches in the Bay Area, we did demos. They talked to other churches. We did onboarding so everybody could see, that it takes 20 minutes to set up an account and take a couple pictures of your rooms and set your policies. I don't know if you want to cover that, if that's a possible next step while Connie, Joan, David, and others think about this. I'll throw that back to you, Ian.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. I can bring that screen up. I would like to just get the thoughts before, in the last 10 minutes of anyone, about coming together, at whether it's in Denver or Boulder or at the state level, your thoughts on how we could partner as we've done through Adrian with your congregations. Henry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to encourage you, when you go back to your church and talking to your appropriate committees, you may not have all the right answers. So when you do, if you need help, contact Ian or Dan, and so one of us can be present to answer your the questions from your appropriate committees, and so that they can understand this project better. So you don't have to feel like you have to be the only one to be the bearing all the answers. I also wanted to thank the Council of Churches for Colorado. I know the Council of Churches in general, they've done a lot of advocacy work, and but this is a rare occasion where the Council of Churches are really caring about the well-being of local churches and really practical issues. And I think it is a great leadership and great ways to support local churches. And I think I just wanted to thank the leadership of Council of Churches in Colorado for doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. I echo those thanks. It's been great to get to know you and to learn about how you think we can work well together. Let me share my screen, just do a quick flyby demo. We won't go into too much depth here, but you can see here we have, if you haven't looked at our website, we have various churches, a lot of different rooms, different kinds of rooms. So we have, auditoriums and sanctuaries. We have parish halls and the like, and then we have, you can filter by capacity if you need a large space or a smaller space, or certain dimensions, or if you want to find something that has free Wi-Fi, for example, which most churches have, or free. I don't think we have any that have free coffee, but sometimes they might. And
Ian, it is interesting. Ian, and I forget who asked the original question about guests, but there is in the marketplace, folks, we found in the Bay Area, there's I'll call it a stigma that, why would I rent space in a church? It's got a sanctuary with stained glass, pews bolted to the floor and a big cross and an altar. That's not what I'm looking for.
Yep.
So we've had to, using search engine optimization and the positioning of the website and pictures, show that no, you could do a dance recital there, you could do a yoga class there, you could host a picnic there, on and on and on, to sort of reposition the availability and the functionality of the church space.
Yep. So these are ongoing conversations to help people understand what they might need to do, and how do we educate and support both sides. I see a question in the chat. So Connie, I started to address that earlier. What the things that we're doing are sort of online marketing, email campaigns, building partnerships with nonprofits and community organizations so that they're aware of our website. We think that working with the congregations to give them the tools as well, so that they can tell their friends more easily, or they know, if you go to thisspace.io / St. Augustine's, you'll find the spaces we have. You'll be able to check availability easily. You'll see lots of pictures, and you can search a variety of different spaces in one website. So there's a number of different things that we're doing, and over time, more and more people will know that this space is there, and if they're looking for a community space in somewhere like a church, then they go to this space, rather than relying on people knowing that there's a church, that it's open, there's still a congregation there, and making a phone call, or finding that one website and figuring out how to navigate that to inquire about booking space. So in my experience, being on the board of my church, the vestry of my local church, and managing the rentals and managing real estate in our congregation, it's just really hard for people to find, and it takes a lot of effort for us to field those inquiries. And so I wanted to make it easier for people to find the space, to engage with the congregation, and make it easier for the people who have to do that on the inside.
Yeah, it is. And Connie, I'll just add, it is some work on the guest side with both mass marketing and targeted marketing. And when we find in the Bay Area, we have a choir, or when we find we have AA, or when we find we have Boys Club of America renting at one church, that's a guest partner that we market to heavily and try to push or pull them into the other churches. We are not, Connie, you're asking the right question. We are not the Airbnb or the VRBO yet of sharing church space with the community. That is why when we talked to Adrian, we had the conversation with Adrian and the council board about, this is less interesting with one churches or two churches. It gets really interesting when there's 20, 50, 100 churches, because that creates a viral network effect in Denver or Colorado Springs or Grand Junction. And that's what we'd like to do with you guys, if you'd go along for that journey with us.
Joan, your hand was raised.
Yeah. It just occurred to me, is there a way to have a two-tier, if someone is aligned with the church mission, nonprofit, but a different fee for some group that's not aligned or is for-profit? Or does it have to be just the same fee for everybody?
Right now, our website is configured for one simple fee, and we recommend people start high, because you can always discount. It's much harder to tell a group you're not aligned with that you're going to pay twice as much. But what we do is we help manage that discount process, through Stripe. So we can issue discount codes and make it easier for people to price
Okay.
accordingly. The vision is that the technology will evolve, so you'll have, you know, levers you can adjust based on that. You might have, you know, every congregation, as much as we all sort of support all the causes, every congregation is going to say we're a immigration or we're a hunger church, and we're going to focus on addressing hunger in, you know, in the state or wherever. So you might say any hunger aligned or hunger alleviating nonprofit is going to get, you know, a really deep discount. Every other nonprofit, this is the rate, and then everyone else, this is the rate. So we're not there yet, but I think that's kind of part of the vision, is how do we make this easier for everyone to you might say 20% of our bookings are going to be dedicated to free space for children's programs, and then the rest of the time we'll rent to other appropriate groups, and they'll pay more to support and subsidize that sort of mission that we have, and we really want to focus on child education or something.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Well, I realize we're getting towards the end of the time. I would love to talk with all of you individually, and we'd love to, as Dan said, figure out how do we build this bunch of churches in the Colorado area to do something different and hold hands as we do it. But we'll have to leave that for future conversations. We'll share the recording of this webinar so that you can share that with your congregations and others that would be interested. If you have any questions, my email is ian@thisspace.io. I'll put that in the chat. Feel free to get in touch, and we will continue the conversation offline. Adrian, is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
No, I just want to thank everybody for coming to this space virtually. And again, yeah, please contact Ian directly if you have questions. We will be doing other things. You know, we're going to certainly put the link out to our membership. We'll probably have more lunch and learns like this as people who couldn't make it today and maybe still have questions. So we're going to be growing this thing in the coming months, and this will be a collaborative process. So yeah, we want to learn from you and what your challenges are. But again, just kind of piggybacking on what Reverend Henry said, this is our attempt to provide some real life solutions to the things that you are facing, the realities you're facing as congregations. And we know it's tricky out there. So I'm just excited about this collaboration. And again, thank you for joining us today, and look forward to working with you all in the future.
Thanks. Take care.
Thanks,
Blessings,
everybody.
everyone.
God bless.